picture this for a second, right? So you're in a trench covered in mud. Shells are coming over. Guys are dying all around you. You break down, right?
Yeah.
So the options that you got, you either get shot, you hopefully get court-martialed, or you get sent back to the front line.
Dude, we're sitting here bitching because the VA is not fast enough or whatever.
Right.
And like, these motherfuckers, like, you either get over it or get fucking shot.
Like in the military, right? I mean, right now, like if somebody's being a malingering bitch, you don't sit there and cuddle them. You tell them man the fuck up and do some things. But there is like a marginal of understanding of welfare a troop. Back then, there really wasn't.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Zero Bunker. If this is your first time here, we want to welcome you. This is a safe space for skull fuckers. We are a podcast that just kicked off. Zero Bunker is an extension of an already existing military veteran-owned and operated brand, Zero Foxtrot. My name's CJ. I'm the co-host here on the Zero Bunker, and with me, we've got...
And I'm G. I'm going to be your host.
Yeah, man, you the main host, dude. It feels weird me opening these up sometimes because...
But you get the voice, man. You got that appeal. That's the reason why I crawl with you in bed at night.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
That makes complete sense. Yeah, I'm basically here, guys. If anybody's wondering why the fuck is this skinny dude here, it's because he's like more of the introvert, man. Like the PTSD fucked him up in a different way than it did me. Like for me, I gotta like talk a lot, and then for him, he's kind of emo about it.
I don't know, man. I think it must be, the whole time I've been beating my ass off in the fucking Porta Johns and 120 degrees in the heat. I think that's what kind of fried a few molecules up there. But
I don't know, man. I got after it pretty good in there myself. All right, so guys, this is another episode of a very unscripted, unfiltered podcast. Obviously, we if you're watching this on YouTube, this damn sure ain't gonna be monetized. That's for sure. We just want to keep it real with you guys. This is an open-ended conversation. We just let it run. And what are we getting into today, man? You had an idea to do something, right?
Yeah. So I actually take time to read, the comments and posts and replies, and again, the Zero Bunker, this is for you guys. All right, we're just here to wave the flag and share the knowledge. So, and I know a lot of you have been digging the World War I accounts. And everybody asks me, well, what do you get? Because I do a lot of firsthand accounts of these guys. You know what I mean? Like this is like, what I post is actually written.
Yeah, and if you guys are wondering,
words,
because some of you guys, if you're actually stumbling across this without seeing any of the Zero Foxtrot accounts, just to kind of clarify, this is our first extension on YouTube. So if you stumbled across this just from YouTube, Zulu Fox is the Instagram account, and you've been doing that for a long time, where you basically do these stories, and that's what he's talking about, basically.
Right? Yeah. So see, he's so good. I just get lost in the fucking sauce half the time, man. But in any case, yeah. I mean, that's where I post on the daily, content and stories and bios about the old school generation. So. And if you're following this is just another extension of it. It's more of a, getting more into the deep end of things. And
I like to get deep, dude. I just think that's where I want to be, in the deep end of things, bro.
Yeah. My mom appreciated it, by the way. So she told me to tell you that.
I like it when the skulls are deep. That way you can really, those Cro-Magnon skulls, man, that's fucking...
See, I love this guy, man. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, so
you got suggestions though, like already from the Instagram accounts. Yeah,
so we had a lot of feedback already, and one of them was like, "Hey, dude, you gotta get more into depth into the the World War I accounts." And I know I mentioned it in the other episode that it's kind of like a forgotten war, even though it has shaped the world as we know it today, even as on a military aspect, on a political aspect. just in general. And what's so intriguing about the First World War is the way, not just the way it was fought, but the people, the humanity behind it. Even though like millions of people died in it, it was a horrible war. I mean, the highest casualties. I mean, some of the battles have literally decimated entire armies. And it was so well documented by the men who actually fought. And you read some of this stuff, man. I mean, it's some dark, scary shit.
So why do you think? Because I mean, you know what's funny, dude? Like, I feel bad. Here I am on the fucking Zero Bunker, and like I didn't even realize you were on this World War I kick right now on Instagram. I apologize. I need to pay more fucking attention. But you know what's interesting? It's not until you said it just now. You're absolutely right that World War I, there's something about it that hasn't been like it's not as marketable or something. Like people like talking about World War II, Vietnam. We hear like, but why? So what the fuck is it? What is it?
So one thing that I did notice, man, is so the United States in general didn't enter the war until like much later, So the majority of the years, the Canadians, the guys from New Zealand, the British, all the Commonwealth, and I'm talking about like on the Allied side of things, they took the majority of the brunt, the French and all that. So to them, it's more like, man, it's like engraved in their soul,
So here in the States, I'm just not in other countries, it's possible that World War I is like what I think of a World War II.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you got to look at World War I, the States always considered, that's Europe's problem. That's not our problem.
Yeah,
World War II, it was almost the same thing, except we got forced into it because of Pearl Harbor and all that. Yeah. So on an American side, and we went out there, I mean, we kicked ass. We had a lot of history. We fought in a lot of battles. I mean, Marines and you had the Harlem Hellfighters and all good stuff. But the majority of war was actually fought by the rest of the Allies. And so a lot of the documentations, diaries, and letters come from those guys. And you read some of them, and what's interesting is that the way these guys wrote about their experiences, the vocabulary that they used, it was like, I mean, you read it, it's so poetic because you're reading it. It's like some really dark poetry, man. I mean, they're literally giving you a glimpse of what it was like to be in the meat grinder of things. I mean, you're talking about, mud and shells and dead bodies getting churned up in this mud and gas and flamethrowers and the mental fuck that these guys had to go through, to just live.
Dude, and like, I don't know if this is obviously this is something you probably recognize, but man, we've had conversations, just me and you, about like some of these old like dark stories like that, and what's crazy to me is just, being, look, man, I'm 32 years old, man. Like I obviously don't know a whole lot. Like I never really was like a hardcore history buff and stuff. When I think back at like, say like the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, I have this kind of like censored idea of like, it's everything's like, it's this very like long dresses and like they're not showing skin and we're just keeping it like chipper. And you've told me stories and I'm like, there's some dark, hardcore motherfuckers, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and it's weird to associate that. I don't know why for me. I don't know if other people out there are thinking that, but like, it's weird for me to put my mind on that sometimes. But
yeah, no, I get it. Like I said, some people have this misconception. Like, for example, like in, and I don't want to get too much off subject, but like World War II, people think that these guys went out there, fought the good fight, came back, and they were all fine, and they got back, working at the regular jobs, and a lot of them did. But what a lot of people don't know or realize is that these guys, they didn't have the VA, like, the systems that we have now.
Right.
See what I'm saying? Like these guys, yes, they got back and went back to work and all that, but the psychological effects and everything else, it stuck with them, and society didn't really understand, even though like right now, even, we complain right now the society doesn't understand, but the truth of the matter is that society actually understands a little bit more than what they did way back then. Because when you went to any kind of doctor or psychiatrist back then, it was like, hey, dude, if you think better, you're going to feel better. That was like the whole thing, So as much as we hate the VA and everything else, and I think, again, there needs to be a lot of changes on it, but we definitely have more resources than what those guys had back then. And the only resource that they had was them talking about it, So I actually, if you guys actually watched the documentary called The War of Kevin Burns, and it's been out there for quite a while, but towards the very end, one of them was describing that one of the wives of the GIs that came back home, they all lived in the same neighborhood. So at night, they didn't have Xbox and YouTube and all that. So at night they would all just kind of congregate and meet. And the men would sit there and talk about their experiences, and the women would just sit there and listen, so they could get a better understanding about their husbands that have been away for 2-3 years. And then what she realized is that it was actually therapeutic for them. You know what I mean? So the whole point that people think the World War II guys came back, didn't have any problems, it's definitely not true. Now, if you switch back 20 years prior to that, from World War I, that was even worse back then.
Right.
You know what I mean, we have PTSD, and it was actually PTSD wasn't actually considered on a clinical level, I wouldn't say an actual medical term until the 1980s. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And it was called shell shock and combat fatigue and all the other good stuff. But World War I actually showed the effects of shell shock. I mean, these guys were literally trembling physically, their entire nervous system was completely broken down because of the sheer, the artillery shells and being in combat and being exposed to so much, where their body literally their mind and body broke down.
Well, so you were saying that. So one of the suggestions, obviously, on the Instagram account was to do kind of tell some of these stories and to get into some of these heroes. And so the one that you said you wanted to talk about today has to do with the shell shock, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is, you're gonna have to pardon me. I know I kind of get weird when I read shit or whatever. So
you're just
we're gonna put
subtitles.
Anyway, we're gonna put subtitles somewhere.
Yeah. Sometimes you're just weird in general. I feel like they just need to adapt to that. It's
that's
not
true. Well, if you got this far, man, then we appreciate it. You're very loyal. So, so this is what I'm about to read right now is actually about shell shock, and this is about a soldier who witnessed a soldier going through a shell shock. So, so it reads: "It was while I was in the field hospital that I saw the first case of shell shock. The enemy opened fire about dinner time as usual with his big guns. As soon as the first shell came over, the shell shock case nearly went mad. He screamed and raved, and it took 8 men to hold him down on the stretcher. With every shell, he would go into a fit of screaming and fight to get away. A much larger number of soldiers with these symptoms were classified as malingerers and sent back to the front line. In some cases, men committed suicide. Others broke down under the pressure and refused to obey orders from their officers. Some responded to the pressures of shell shock by deserting. Sometimes, soldiers who disobeyed orders got shot on the spot. In some cases, soldiers were court-martialed. It is heartbreaking to watch a shell shock case. The terror is indescribable. The flesh on their faces shakes in fear, and their teeth continually chattering. Shell shock was brought about in many ways: loss of sleep, continually being under heavy shell fire, the torment of lice, irregular meals, nerves always on end, and the thought always in a man's mind that the next minute was going to be his last." And this was written by Corporal Henry Gregory of the 119th Machine Gun Company, 40th Division, France, 1916.
Dude, that is incredible, because anybody listening to this right now, 2018, we are acutely, because of just the ability to get information out there in the world, we are all aware of what PTSD or post-traumatic anything. We're very aware of what that means. Now, to me, I don't know what you think about this, man, but just knowing in 1916 that that's being documented, it's bizarre to me. And it wasn't until in the 1980s that we actually, were able to label it in something. It kind of blows my mind, man. That's so powerful, dude.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, some of the things that he was saying, let's picture this for a second, right? So you're in a trench covered in mud, shells are coming over, guys are dying all around you, you break down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the options that you got, you either get shot, you hopefully get court-martialed, or you get sent back to the front line.
Dude, we're sitting here bitching because the VA is not fast enough or whatever. And
Right.
like, these motherfuckers, like, you either get over it or get fucking shot. You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of, damn, dude,
and
that's crazy.
And that's the other thing, man. I mean, these guys, when they went to the front line, because here's the other thing too. So the guys that were there, they used to write letters back home, but they actually had sergeants or corporals or whatever that would actually read every letter to censor things that they didn't want the public to know before they sent them out. So let's say I had to write a letter like, a love letter to you, and I'm telling you all this crazy shit.
What would it say? What would you write to me?
You know what? I mean, something super explicit and sexual, probably.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't censor that, but they would censor the fact that all my guys are fucking dying and I'm telling you, don't fucking come over. They'll censor that part, but they wouldn't censor the mere fact that I would do all kinds of things to you.
I thought I was more important to you than that, but I guess I'm just a piece of meat.
Well, at the end of the day.
Dude, so you're telling me that if they were censoring out these letters to hide. So, cause here's what's interesting. And I don't know if you're like putting this together, man, but like, it's interesting to me to think that they were worried about the civilians, getting information about like how hard it is or the truth problems. But if you were on the front lines, you better get the fuck over it or get shot.
Right.
Like it's weird, the dynamic separation. Like they didn't look at the soldiers like the civilians in a sense. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. I mean, also to understand too. Here's the other thing too. Now nobody's saying that. In the military, obviously, you know that it's if somebody's fucking being a bitch, you don't say, oh well, let me just go ahead and maybe in the Air Force they do, but not everywhere else, right?
We love the Air Force too.
Yeah.
Kind of. Well, more than the Coast Guard.
Yeah, I guess there is points for second place. So.
All right.
But in any case, I mean damn, lost my track.
Oh,
dude.
so no, you're saying like in the scenario, like in the military, like
right.
You're
So
not going to pussyfoot around it, right?
Yeah, see, that's what happens when I just gaze into your eyes, man. I just get lost. Fuck. So what happens is, like in the military, right? I mean, right now, like if somebody's being a malingering bitch, you don't sit there and cuddle them. You tell them man the fuck up and do some things. But there is like a marginal of understanding of welfare of troop. Back then, there really wasn't. You see what I'm saying? Now, unless it came down to, unless it came down to the having a good officer who was extremely understanding and took out for his men, but in the majority of it there wasn't really a policy where here's the deal, dude. Like if I'm in Iraq or Afghanistan and obviously a guy or one of my guys is fucking like trembling, having a goddamn seizure because of IEDs and shit, I'm not gonna tell him get the fuck up and fight. The guy is gone. I mean, he now becomes a liability.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because now he's going to get the rest of the guys killed. Back then, they didn't care about that because you know what? They're going to send you over the top. And if like 85% of you guys get killed, guess what? The other 85% is going to come in tomorrow and replace them.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. So this is kind of what I was hoping that this conversation could kind of get into. And I think this is an interesting topic. And you and I have had talks about this before because in regards to shell shock, PTSD, these kind of scenarios, we find this interesting line or this balance. And I think that I went into the service whenever I was 18 or 17 years old. And, here I'm 32 years old. At first, like I went through maturity levels of understanding with this. I think, there has to be like a hard fuck, like suck it the fuck up, man up. But there's also a realization of being able to have at least a certain level of compassion or understanding. There's a line that it crosses. And I think a lot of times veteran pushed like social media accounts and things like that, they always talk about like, stop being a pussy and like it's all about, hoes and guns and just
bikes.
being a hard ass. Yeah. But so the big question is that like, where is the balance? Because we know that we're sold this like be hard, suck it up, like, you know, all that shit. But there also becomes a line where we also need to have compassion and understanding for a certain level. Now, I'm not trying to be a baby back bitch right now. You know, I joined the Marine Corps for a reason, man. Like, you know, they didn't do me any fucking favors. So, you know, with compassion. So I get that, but I also am standing here as a civilian, and I'm here to tell you, like, for me to be the best civilian and the most effective person in today's world, I have to understand that it's not always about just being the hardest motherfucker out there. And there's not a lot of people talking about that, like the deeper root of the issue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, that's one thing that fucks up a lot of guys when they get out, because, you know, when you join the military, whatever branch that is, unless it's the Air Force, then what happens is...
Or Coast Guard.
Oh, Coast Guard. What happens is, you know, you get broken down, you get molded into, you know, being part of a regimented structure, right? You learn to follow, you know, you follow orders, you know, get your task. The mission is number one, take care of your guys, yada, 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 right? Cool, great. So now you're already detaching yourself from the regular civilians. When you get out, there's no really any manual, there's not really any memorandum that says, okay, turn that switch off, man, and go back to how you can't do that. I mean, it took you all that time to be built into the person that you are. And I remember when I got out, I mean, it was like, here's how you write resumes, get the fuck out, right? So now you're stranded in the civilian world with the mentality of being in the military. And unfortunately, because the civilian world doesn't work like that, now you go into these conflicts, and now you're feeling pretty much lost because you don't have a sergeant, you don't have anybody you look up to, you don't have any guidance, you don't have any direction. Now they're telling you, hey, you can think on your own. I did not get the actual concept of making free and deliberate decisions. Literally, like, I want to say like 6 years after I got out. I mean, to me, it was a concept of like, holy shit, like I can do this without asking anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and it's crazy, man, because and that's exactly what I find to be interesting is, as a more you know, the more I've matured over the years and like start to better understand like my situation. I mean, look, I'll be the first one to tell y'all, you know, first of all, I'm incredibly thankful that I joined the Marine Corps, because it turned like a punk ass kid and like showed him how to be strong and how to like persevere and like get my shit done no matter what. But then there's also a tipping point where, you know, it almost like imagine if you're like hardened so much that it turns into like a damaging scar or something. You know what I mean? Like where it's like you over cauterize the wound in a sense. And so as an adult, as a you know, somebody with kids, and I've gone through a divorce and stuff, and it's like, look, there was a part of me that I wish I would have learned how to like show compassion when it was necessary and not have to be just, you know, that emotionless hard ass. And so when I look at society, I think about that, right? And I'm like, look, well, I always hear all the time on fucking Facebook, maybe it's just the people I follow and shit. I always hear the like, you know, oh, it's a pussy ass society and this and that. And yeah, I'm not actually disagreeing. I think there's a lot of soft motherfuckers out there, and we give everybody needs a fucking trophy and all that. So I'm with y'all, right? But I think what's interesting is that good leadership, like it's like, when I look at jobs, all right, like Facebook, like you see the like Facebook and Google jobs and shit where they're like got couches and fucking wear whatever the fuck you want to, whatever. And I always think, I'm like, is that too lenient? Where like it's making people fucking too soft and too entitled? Maybe. But then there's another side of it where you're a fucking like sweatshop worker and you better wear the fucking button up shirt and this and that, and you're going to work in good condition. Like that's too far the other direction.
That's where iPhones come from, by the way.
Well, yeah. And so I guess what I'm saying is like, it's rare that you hear veterans, I think, at least publicly talking about the opposite end. I hear a lot of like, just suck it up, stop being a little liberal pussy, but I don't hear a lot of like teaching hard asses that have been over hard assed how to flex compassion when it's necessary.
Right, yeah, and you know what? I know guys right now are probably screaming, man, look at these two bitches, you know, being soft and shit, talking about it. But you know what? The reality of it is that the military mentality, that it's been ingrained, it can only last for so long. So this is what I call the slingshot effect, right? So when you're in the military, the sling gets pulled back, and the more you're in it, the further it goes back. When you get out, you let go, and now you're on this flight, right? And for example, my personal level, my flight lasted about 8-9 years until, you got to lose the velocity and you're crashing and burning. And when I burned, I woke up not completely lost and realized, okay, I cannot use that mentality anymore of what kept me alive in the military, right? Of surviving the regiment of it. And now it's like I'm 28, 29 or whatever I was back then, and realize, well, who the fuck am I now? Like, what am I doing? How am I going to accomplish this? And it was so damaging to me because I didn't ask for help. I didn't have a clear understanding of how to actually live a life outside of being in the military. And that's what screwed me up even more. So the tough attitude, fuck everybody, balls to the wall, 0 to 100, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, it got me through a lot of stuff. Don't get me wrong. But what I wasn't noticing is that it was deteriorating the other side that I wasn't seeing yet. So when I burned, my mind and body was like, hey, dude, this is it. Like, this is as far as you're going to go with this. So what now? So I was completely, floored because of it. And I woke up and I said, man, like, it took me, I felt like a grown baby that I didn't even know how to walk. Like, I had to relearn everything. And I remember standing outside, like, looking at the fucking sky and thinking, like, holy shit, like, that's the sky. Like, you really go through, it was like a switch that, it just turned on. It turned off and turned on at the same time. And I woke up this whole different person. Now I've been trying to rebuild myself. And there are a lot of things that I'm doing now for my own well-being that maybe 3 years ago, I'd be like, man, fuck that. Like, I'm not doing that shit. That's for bitches. You know what I mean? Because I had a tough attitude. And what I also realized, and this is a message that's going out literally to everybody who's literally going through shit, okay? I honestly felt like being behind a glass window watching everybody else's life go by, and I'm sitting there being like a witness of what everybody else is doing, right? And the internal rage that I had, it felt like you were screaming, nobody heard you. But the problem was that I was screaming inside, but I wasn't screaming on the outside. So when I had to, when I finally did ask for help because I was just completely destroyed, everybody was like, well, about fucking time. Like, it made me realize that all these people really wanted to help me out, but I never gave them a chance to do it. They didn't know how to approach it, So that was one of the very first things that I learned. And then other things, man, I started doing more natural shit. You know what I mean? I quit fucking doing all kinds of, being like an adrenaline fucking junkie, you know what I mean? Trying to find a balance because I was completely offset on one side to the extreme. And then I actually flipped over and was completely dormant. And now I was like finding that balance. So,
yeah. And I mean, dude, that's so to me, to me as somebody that has, served overseas and like spent my time in the military and kind of has gone through some of the journey that you just described. I wish that there were more influencers and voices and stuff out there saying things like that, because that's a message, in my opinion, in 2018. Like I'm hearing all the pussies crying about what they need, and I'm hearing all the hard asses talking about how you need to harden up, but I don't hear a lot of people like talking about the way to balance that and to, look at what you earned as becoming a skull fucker as a benefit, but at the same time understanding where it can really kick you in the nuts. And I went through, I spent most of my early years like literally thinking that I didn't need anybody or a goddamn thing. And I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I've never taken a dime from like the VA. I never went to my parents. I didn't go to like friends. Like I could make it on my own. And if I fucking couldn't do it, like I can, I just can't do it. Like it's only me and that's it. I even looked at my marriage, man. I went through a shitty divorce and I looked at my marriage as like, if you're not with me, I'll be fine. Like I'll be fine on my own. You know what I mean? And to me, it was the same thing, man. Like, I feel like I literally went on a journey just like what you're saying, where I had this realization one day that, you know, it's not strong of me to pretend like I don't, you know, I can do it all on my own. What's strong, what's real strength is being a good husband, being compassionate, being better, you know, like being a better leader in that, my own leader, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you're right, dude. It's like a leader that's just yells at you that you're, you know, suck it the fuck up. That's not good leadership, man. But then there's another one where, like, if you over coddle your fucking troops, guess what? That's fucked up too. A good leader is able to find that balance. Air Force. Yeah. Well, Marine Corps was just like suck it the fuck up. The Air Force was just
and then just to clarify, I mean, this is all, you know, we're all just fucking around, man. I mean, you know, we don't really hate the Air Force and shit. I mean, you guys are actually the smart ones. You know, we are the Marines are the ones that do all the, you know, the dumb work, I guess you can say. But we're still better. So
yeah, well,
we still love you.
So I don't know if you know this. My brother's 2 years younger than me, man. He was in the Air Force, and like in the Air Force basic training or boot camp, whatever the fuck they call it. I don't know, the fucking church camp. It's in San Antonio, right down the road from us, man. So
how did he turn out?
You know what? He's doing great, man. He's got a freaking wife, a house, a good job, and, like, you know what? And he's not struggling with all the shit I'm dealing with. Fuck, man. Fuck.
Well, it's not like us.
Damn it, man.
Well, he's definitely not us just sitting on the couch with worn out shirts and shit, right?
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, I ended up with neck tattoos and shit, dude. So obviously, I was he must have made the better decisions.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, we should get him on, man, and
yeah,
hopefully you can give us some insight on the successes here. You know.
Well, so I think, like, to kind of like circle this back around, what I really thought, this is only our second episode, and we want the Zero Bunker to, like, we want this to be a message for everybody out there that maybe has like a similar mindset or is looking for, I mean, you know, whether it's just content that you're looking to absorb or it is like things that can help you out. I know I wish that I would have ran across somebody talking about the things that G just talked about whenever I was younger and some of the things that I've gone through. In the midst of all these, you know, just brands that are talking about, like, just, you know, go to the next hoe if your wife, you know, ain't doing, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I wanted somebody to give me some legit advice. And so
what everybody has been lacking has been guidance. That's what a lot of these guys crave for and need. And hopefully, you know, having this podcast, that's another great thing about the Zero Bunkers that, you know, like you were saying, we can actually hopefully supply that. Hopefully, if this thing flows around, man, we don't get banned or get kicked out or anything like that. Then maybe
chances
20 years
slim,
down the road.
Chances are fucking slim.
Well, 20 years down the road, man, when you got veterans who are slaying fucking Koreans and shit, right? They can look back in this video like, man, those dumbass fucking people who fought in the GWAT, man, like, yeah, I'm going through the same shit. You know what I mean? So yeah. This is more like a testament of
and I think it speaks to Zero when you. The thing, if anybody were to ask, like, well, how is Zero different than other military brands out there? Basically what we're talking about, I think, is what you have already established through different platforms. You're not just following the lead of everybody else and every other veteran, you know, brand out there preaching the same kind of things. You're giving a deeper understanding, whether that's stories or just talking to an emotion that I think isn't talked about a lot when it comes to veterans. Like, anybody that's been in knows that darkness, that there's something in there, man, that, like, Zero speaks to that I think is very, very rare when it comes to, you know, a lot of these outlets out there. Hopefully that makes sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I wanted to announce is that we're going to have our very first guest for the next episode. We're going to have a CAG Ranger guy and then 2 Marines who are doing some incredible things with music. And they reached out to us. We love their stories, man. And it's going to be a really good episode.
Very cool. Awesome, guys. Well, hey, we wanted to thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, this was our second episode. We are still kind of getting our feet underneath us, I think, with this whole thing. We appreciate every subscriber, every listener, every view, every comment, every like. I mean, anybody that's, even if you're being a shithead in the comments, we appreciate that shit too. So thank all you guys for tuning in and listening. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you are somewhere else, do whatever the fuck you need to do to follow us, because we're going to have these every single week. And I think that's it, man.
Welcome to the Zero Life.